It's time for the PhDs. Two intrepid Paulding people, Pat Hughes and Deena Sanfilippo, seek the real truth, real justice, and the real American way. Here they are. Welcome to the... I'm Pat Hughes, and you're...
Deena Sanfilippo.
And that's the PhDs and PhDs, and we're just too smart for our own damn good. We're
That's a matter of opinion.
Oh, well, that's fine. We can deal with those people as time goes on. Anyway, we're going to be talking about, I guess, the airport and whatever, but let's do a little update. We just got off the phone talking to Patty, who was used to be a part of this, and she is house hunting in Cascade Heights. Mm-hmm. And she is, that house couldn't be, and whatever. I mean, it's, she's regretting, she's wanting to pack up everything into a 22-inch bag and take her dog and leave.
I understand.
Yeah, you were kind of doing some stuff that had you that attitude.
We bought 2 new rooms of furniture, and we knew when we bought the furniture that one room of furniture, the living room furniture, was going to show up on a specific day, and the bedroom furniture was going to show up at another point in time, and the estimate that they had given us was either this week or next week. Well, the beginning of last week, I get a call that my bedroom furniture is going to show up Thursday, and my living room furniture was coming Friday. So, I mean, we're talking about taking everything out of a room. Mm-hmm. So that the new stuff can come in, and usually when you have a situation like that, you just kind of move the stuff out of one room into the room next to it. Well, I couldn't do that. I had to completely move stuff around and move stuff down to the basement and the garage and everything. And so stuff is everywhere in my house. I haven't gotten rid of anything. It's still there, and
yeah,
I don't like just stuff just indiscriminately piled up. I mean, there's stuff that's piled up, but I know what's in that pile. You know, it's different when it's just, I just got to throw something somewhere, and here's like a spot. So I'm just kind of like at my wit's end, and then I was trying to get curtains and everything put up, and I got curtains. I found curtains that I wanted for my dining room, and they were beautiful. They're brown, and I got them home, and I hung them up, and it's on the south side of my house. So now they're like translucent. And so they look like they're this mauve color. So now I've got to figure out something to put back behind it so that it looks the color that it's supposed to be. And my husband threw his back out putting up some other curtains and tapestry that I had put up for a long time. So it's just one thing after another.
I know. Life is like that.
And then earlier in that week, I was dealing with those people who had knocked over my mailbox.
Oh, your mailbox. Oh, yeah. Did they ever come through?
They did. Now, I don't know, if they were actually planning on doing it when they said they were supposed to, or if they just saw what kind of crazy woman I was, because Saturday, let me tell you, see, Patty, I was telling Patty about this, and she said I need to have my hormones checked, but, so anyway, so I saw the little guys driving in the truck. They go past my house, and it's a cul-de-sac. So I don't know what I was thinking. I was just like, I'm going to have a conversation with you. So I get in my car, and I hightail it down to the end of the cul-de-sac. I get out of my car, and I point it, and I said, I'm having a conversation. Where's my money for my mailbox? And they just thought I was crazy. And sometimes maybe you got to come across as a little unbalanced, because they're like, oh, please let me write you a check so that you don't go crazy on me. So anyway.
Did they write you a check on the spot?
Well, no, it wasn't. It was like the subcontractors. These were like the roofing company, but it was their subcontractor. But anyway, so the subcontractor came out, and he said, okay, I'm gonna go and get you this mailbox. I gotta write the check to them for, a tax purposes. I'm like, okay, well, I get that. So anyway, so he went and he got the mailbox, and the little guy came out the next day and put it up, and it looks nice.
Well, good. I'm so glad, and your challenges sound so simple compared to mine. You're talking about all this pile of stuff that somewhat's in there and whatever, but it's so. I've got stuff that has been piled up for years and years. Paulding County,
and it's not even your stuff.
It is my stuff now. It's my stuff now. I bought a piece of property down off of 61 Highway, New Georgia, and I've got stuff out the wazoo. I can tell you that. I got tires, I got garbage, I got car parts, I've got farm tractor parts. 500-pound tractor parts, 1,000-pound tractor parts. I got bags of garbage under inches of pine straw.
You win, because I'm just complaining because I've got like stacks of children's encyclopedias
they fit
that
in
I
the
don't
room.
know if
This fits on acre.
I've got bags of clothes that my child has outgrown, and I'm waiting to, for this family that I normally give my clothes to come back to Cub Scout because they're playing fall ball, and I'm just sitting there going, I wish they would come back, because I'm about to the point where I just want to take it and find one of those little
That's just so easy. I'm having to deal with people that made the decisions to put their septic tanks close to their wells. So now I'm going to be a proud owner of a Paulding, or I'm not going to be the owner of the Paulding County water meter, but I will be the lesser of one for perpetuity.
That was either gross incompetence, putting something that close, or it was
just not
a licensed job of some
sort.
Well,
in 1963, there weren't too many licenses being passed out. So anyway, those are some of the issues that surround us as we live our regular lives, just like everybody else has got their issues, and I got issues that I could go on and on. But what we're really talking about is not, what's happened to Patty or what's happening to us. We wanted to make us a little bit human, but, being PhDs or whatever, that's a joke, folks. If you got to know that.
I have to bring my Mensa magazine.
We might be able to convince somebody somewhere. But we do have a little bit of knowledge, and some of the knowledge has to do with the airport and what's going on there. And part of that has been so doggone perplexing. In other words, we know that the pad for the airport, for the runway, was made super thick in Paulding County, out of concrete, not asphalt. And this was all decided in 2007, 2006, and that type of stuff. Then we also know that there's a bunch more wires in the terminal building than really were needed or thought about being needed at the time. And now we also get word from these folks that the city of or the county signed a paper that said that they weren't going to have a major airport or commercial airport here, and that's in writing. I think the way that Whitey put that out, and so it's actually, we got this off the Save Paulding
right.
Code
You go out
website.
to Save Paulding.com, and I think there's like a resources section at the top, and you click on that and click on PDFs, and there's a lot of PDFs that have contracts and letters and correspondence from attorneys and whatnot. So there's
and one of the things was the deed that the city of Atlanta gave Paulding County
when they bought the 162 acres that
in March. What was March of 2007?
August of 2007.
Okay, and the contention is that precludes Paulding County from having a commercial airport. Now I looked at it, and from what I saw, the city of Atlanta granted Paulding County one of those legal lists of legal things where we're granting you everything we got in this property, and you can do with it whatever you want to in perpetuity for whatever, except for this Schedule B, I guess it was, or Appendix B.
Well, there is a partial release of purchase, and I guess this is really open to interpretation as far as what, but you would think that if there was going to be some restrictions, that it would either be maybe in this section or it would have been in a separate addendum, because like you said, this is a partial release, and
it was a release from what was it, Cousins Properties, Temple Inland, and Jones Company,
right,
who had the right to purchase back all the land that they sold to the city of Atlanta if that land is not used for a major airport.
By 2020.
By 2020. And so now...
Keep that date in mind, people, as
because we're approaching 2020.
We are.
We're 10 months into 2015.
Maybe I should read this and some of it.
Well, yeah, I'd read some of it, maybe.
Okay. Well, basically what it says is that the partnership retained certain repurchase rights with respect to the property, including without limitation the right to repurchase any portion of the property not intended to be used for the major airport or more particularly set forth in this deed. Whereas the city desires to sell a portion of the property to Paulding County, Georgia, for use as an airport that would not constitute a major airport.
So they had to have permission. What it amounts to is they had to have permission to sell it to Paulding County, but under the premise that it was not going to be a major airport. But the only people that had standing in this were the three
Jones Company, Cousins, and 10, which is Temple Inland.
And when they signed that release, they said, okay, you can do with it whatever you want to, because we're going to let you sell that not as a major airport, but you can sell it for whatever purpose you want to this county.
Right.
And now go back to the thoughts of the thick runway and whatever, and recognize that oligarchs play in the background. And I'd have to say Cousins and these folks are oligarchs. I mean, they're very, very well-heeled
right. And
individuals.
Cousins has had a major presence in Paulding County for decades, and yes, and they even have some partnerships, or they have partnerships presently or in the past.
And they're losing their option. Basically, they're losing their option 2020 to repurchase this land. Which means that they might even go exercise their option before 2020 and basically take the land back from the city of Atlanta, and the city of Atlanta may not want to sell it. Or what it amounts to is, I look at it this way. In other words, what a hell of a deal that they made in 1975 when they sold it. They got this chunk of money, okay, that they sold their 9,400 acres or whatever portion of that they owned. And they have this codicil in there, this covenant that says that it's got to be used for a major airport. Now, somewhere around 1995, they're probably getting kind of upset because there's no major airport on their property. Okay? And they know that they lose this in 2020, and everybody likes to own control land. I mean, that's City of Atlanta. But City of Atlanta has been paying the property taxes and everything else all along. They gave them money in the front end. And so what would you do if you were an oligarch and could pull strings around to get the city of Atlanta to get off the pot? I mean, you know, they got to do something or get off the pot. You know what I mean? And so basically, maybe they decided that maybe we could work with Paulding County and pull those strings and have, because they got pretty good strings here in Paulding County too, you got to understand. And have them do the major airport, because they obviously wanted a major airport. That was the whole purpose of the thing, was we sold you this land to make a damn major airport. Where is our major airport?
Well, if you think about it, I mean, if you have a bunch of property just out here, I mean, what can you really do with it? There's not any access really, so you're just talking about a bunch more low income, lower price point housing. Well, that's not going to make anybody a lot of money, but if you had a commercial airport, commercial property goes for a lot more money. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah.
So, going back, this must have been one of the Pat and Patty shows. You were saying, well, we don't know who really is behind all these lawsuits and stuff. Obviously, it wouldn't seem to me logical that these folks.
What I said is, logically, it could, it's like what a lot of people think it is, that it's either the city of Atlanta or Delta or maybe, the two of them working together. But there could be, there's always that snowball's chance that it's somebody else. And, when you start looking at some of this, then, I don't think that it's a real possibility. It's snowballs, but these people do have
an interest.
They do have an interest in this game, yes. And if I was them, I would be sitting there and be watching what's going on and figuring out how I could game it to my advantage.
Yeah, and gaming it is the American way, as we all know. The idea that they're in this is interesting. The idea that City of Atlanta, you could play this any number of ways. In other words, City of Atlanta says, okay, you've got our attention, oligarchs. We've been sitting on your land promising you this major airport for decades, and we've not really come through. So you went out and conned these other folks into creating a major airport. And we don't like that, obviously. And so what do we do to get the major airport back that we got to deliver? So they go out and say, well, let's get the Paulding County Commission, let's get the folks involved in that. I mean, that ends up being the City of Atlanta, convincing folks like Todd and Vernon and Tony and whatever to, well, we can't do anything with this airport, which is kind of where we're headed, I think, in the short term. In other words, because I don't see a general aviation, I just don't see general aviation being anywhere anytime soon in Paulding County, because we don't have the infrastructure, the businesses, et cetera, that would be utilizing that. So it's going to be a money loser for the long term. Well, maybe they ought to just the county ought to just divest itself of the airport. We don't think, the FAA wouldn't let us turn it into a drag strip like some of the folks have suggested. But
so what do they got to do? Drag it out to 2020 to where the city of Atlanta owns it outright and there's no right to repurchase the land and
the Cousins folks and Jones and Temple Inland are going to say, we want something happening.
Yeah, it's in their interest for there to be, I think, a commercial airport. Right, yeah. Since they have a lot of undeveloped property around it, not to mention the 9,400 acres.
Yeah, and they could obviously in 2019 say, well, City of Atlanta, you had your chance. We're buying it back. And they may have, for all we know, they've got a way of establishing the cost or value that is independent of.
I've never seen the contract. The original contract. I would imagine, somebody's probably done an open records request for it, and I imagine that the attorneys have already scoured over that. If they
this throws another wrench into the machinery of whatever that
it does. It presents a lot of what ifs to consider, because there's going to be a lot more twists and turns in this story in the next couple of years.
The other point is that these folks have standing in regard to lawsuits and whatever regarding that property. Being used as the 162 acres regarding.
Well, let me ask you.
But I don't think the city of Atlanta's got any standing at all.
What about the gentleman's company who they used eminent domain to take that property from the actual airport? I mean, because didn't they tell him that it wasn't ever going to be used for a commercial airport too? I don't know if that was.
No, I don't
anything.
think that was irrelevant in that case. That was actually the first case that was heard in the new courthouse facility. But the idea that the IBA was buying the land for industrial development is nothing new, and whatever else was really kind of secondary. In other words, they offered money. It was based on the value of the land when they made the offer, and what was fair market value. Not.
But I think that there was something at one point about that there was, a promise. I don't know if it was just a verbal thing or if it was in writing that it was said to this gentleman that it would not ever be a commercial.
No, that's not an element of it at all.
I think the city of Atlanta sent the FAA a letter to, discussing
saying that this was justification for us agreeing that we were not going to have a major airport.
Well, I think they talked about this issue in the context of, well, you really can't issue a 139 certification because this is, goes against this contract for the 162 acres.
Where's the deed?
And
where's the deed? Not the release, the deed. The city of Atlanta granted in consideration of something $815,000 has bargained, sold, conveyed, and by these presents does hereby bargain, sell, release, and forever quit claim unto grantee all the right, title, interest, claim, or demand which the grantor has or may have had in and to the real property described in Exhibit A, which is the 162 acres, together with all the rights, members, and appurtenances to the property in any wise appertaining or belonging thereto. In other words, it's yours to do with as you please, as long as Superior Court judge doesn't tell you otherwise.
Well,
but basically,
that's your interpretation.
No, that's the deed.
And somebody else has a different interpretation based on this piece of paper. So ultimately, this is just going to be
another. I don't buy that interpretation.
This is going to be another lawsuit that somebody has to decide.
It is. If I were a judge, I'd throw the sumbitch out in a New York minute. I mean, it doesn't make any sense because this is basically a release from these people that had.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe those people have, a lawsuit.
Well, I know.
Cause for a lawsuit.
I know. And what I'm saying is they also had influence in Paulding County. You were saying that when you worked out at the airport that Blake would go out and visit with the folks from Cousins and Jones.
Well, I mean, everybody did. I mean, everybody had friendly relationships.
Yeah,
with,
I know.
The
Real
people
friendly
at Cousins and Temple Inland. And I mean, because they were big developers.
I know.
In the county at the time. So
I know, and they were interested in the airport, weren't they?
Yeah.
They were interested in the airport.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what's interesting is everybody's trying to develop this piece of property when they have the Franco-Utilitarian plan where Paulding County had probably played an international land developer a couple $100,000 to come up for a mixed-use development on this 10,000 acres that
is owned by the city of Atlanta.
Yeah, that they didn't own, that they wanted to, find a joint venture partnership to, buy this piece of property from, and they had discussed with the city of Atlanta the possibility of buying that, and they fully were aware of this repurchase possibility by the original people who owned it. And there were conversations had with them, and then now we're hearing that the city of Atlanta is putting out an RFP for a land developer to figure out what they want to do with it, and it's kind of like, you got till 2020.
And it's all kind of tied to the airport.
Mm-hmm.
All kind of tied to the airport. And recognize that folks that are like oligarchs don't like to let their plans be known, and they do things that come as a surprise to most of us. And
it just looks to me that
there's more things going on here than just.
There's more things going on, and that there are there are some advantages to dragging this 139 certification decision out for years and years, at least till 2020, because then it's kind of a different game after 2020. Somebody has a little bit more control over things.
Well, yeah, but what the hell do we really want City of Atlanta having that much control over things? Actually, the fact that
they're a super citizen here in Paulding County. You know, they pay lots of taxes, have lots of land.
But so is Reuben Jones and that whole bunch. They're super citizens in that context too.
The question is, who is the biggest super citizen? Would it go back to who has the owns the most land in Paulding County? I think City of Atlanta would be right up there.
Yeah, I was thinking
top 2 or 3.
Yeah, well, you know, I understand. I was thinking you were talking about the brass balls. Who had the biggest one of those? But it's a strange one, absolutely. But anyway, I don't think that the city or the county in any way wrote that they were not going to do. This did not say that they were not going to pursue a major airport. It said at that point that they were telling these other folks. Well, I guess the thing is kind of weird is, and the only way you can look at this and think that City of Atlanta might have a thing is that if Paulding County has the major airport, then basically they've got to, they won't have the major airport. They no longer have interests. I mean, the land could be, they don't have a way. In other words, if Paulding gets to 139, then Atlanta's ownership of that land is by definition not viable for a major airport, because you can only have 139. And so that kind of knocks them.
So that throws them into a situation where, I guess, in theory, the original owners could say, we want to repurchase that property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the reason for the 139?
It's a theory.
Do those folks really want that property back?
Well, if I was gaming the system to my advantage, I would be paying attention, and if it looked like Paulding County was going to be getting the 139 certification prior to 2020, I would say I would like to buy my property back, and then I would be having discussions with Paulding County to see whether or not they would want to purchase that property.
Either that, or think of it as, if you look from the sky. In fact, I'm going to put a map up right here of the Atlanta metro area satellite type photo, and you'll see, lights and everything else. And then over here in Paulding County, the closest part in, a whole lot of woods. And that's what we're talking about. And this is, any Donald Trump type character that thinks in terms of strategic, where's the hot land going to be? They're going, right there, that's the land that is close in, that is not developed. Close in, not developed. I want that. And they want it back. They basically got money 45 years ago, gave it to the City of Atlanta. City of Atlanta paid taxes on it for 45 years. These folks want that land back.
Possibly.
Well, I can't. How do they get it back? Are they going to let City of Atlanta just take it? If they can prove in a court of law that City of Atlanta could not do a major airport,
then I guess they would be in. City of Atlanta might be in breach of contract. Possibly.
The City of Atlanta would be, in other words,
well, they
would have to sell the land back. They would have to sell the land back.
It would just be interesting to see the original contract between City of Atlanta and those folks with the repurchase stipulations.
Yep. Well, the city of Atlanta obviously doesn't want to sell the land back. Is the other pretty plain observation.
Then they're behind these lawsuits, then I guess they just need to keep litigating through 2020.
I think that, I tell you what, if they're litigating this being a breach on the part of Paulding County, they ain't got much. And with that, I think we're going to call it a day. Okay. This has been the PhDs with Pat Hughes and Deena Sanfilippo. They've sought the real truth, real justice, and the American way. Bye now.